Hey everyone, it's Aspen Connor. How are you today or this evening, whenever you're listening to this? I've been getting a lot of requests for the people that have known that I went to Delphi. Was that a week ago? And attended
Yes.
the 3 day hearings. Um, and so I wanted to come in and go over my notes and everything, but I figured why do it by myself when I could invite Turbo to come in and do it with me. So everyone, welcome Turbo.
Hello. Hi,
How are
everyone.
how are you?
Go easy on me.
Yeah, she is not. She's not.
I'm a newbie.
Yeah. So what we're doing is pre-recording this portion of like the going over our notes. Basically, I thought it would be interesting because we I think we both take really good notes, and we're sitting next to each other in the courtroom. So I found the idea of us kind of comparing and contrasting our notes and our
Mm,
thoughts. Um, I thought it'd be interesting considering we were sitting next to each other, but you never know who's going to pick up on what or who's going
yeah,
to feel a certain way about one thing versus another. So, I,
definitely.
we're going to break this up into each one of the motions or each one of the emotions that were heard in the hearings, starting with day one, motion one, which was the safekeeping order. Um, is there anything you'd like to say before we get into it?
No, I'm ready to go, Aspen. Fire away.
Uh, well,
I'm
I
ready.
do.
Let's talk about it. We lived it. Now we're gonna talk.
Right. We did live it.
Lord
It's
help
funny.
us.
It feels like longer ago than a week
I
ago,
know. Well, it was 2 weeks ago
2 weeks
almost.
ago.
Almost. Like it's working on. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago today. What the
Right.
heck?
So I apologize that it's
Crazy.
taking me this long to get on and really go over my notes and review everything with everyone. But I
It
hope
was
that
a
everyone
lot.
finds this enjoyable and informative. But I know this was your first trip to Delphi, Turbo. So
Yeah.
I do have to ask quickly. What were your like you've followed this case for as long as I have, or as long
Mm,
as a lot of people have, and what were
yeah.
your thoughts, just going to Delphi itself? Because I know you've been to hearings, you just hadn't been to Carroll County.
Right. Yeah. I had attended the March 18th contempt and dismissal hearing in Fort Wayne. And then I had gone down for the May 7th when all hell broke loose. So this was my first trip to Delphi. I had been on this case since February 17th, 2017. And just a brief backstory on that is the reason why I I was on it right away is because I had been on Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook Morrissey's case out of Evansdale, Iowa, since 2012. So there was a lot of similarities to me. So I was on it practically from the beginning. And Delphi, going there, it was, I mean, I know it from the maps and the photos and videos and everything. It was just beautiful there. It really was. I mean, we went down for such a serious thing, but I've made so many great friends, and meeting you for the first time, it was amazing. We've been friends for a few years now, and Delphi
Aw.
itself was just beautiful. The people there were great. Everybody was amazing. Like it was really nice. And I was shocked at the number of bridges that are there. The bridges and the trail systems. And I mean, I always knew they had the trail systems, but I did get the opportunity on the final day, on the Friday before I left to come back to Canada. I was able to go and hike different trails, and I went through Riley Park, which was just beautiful. It was
Nice.
just a beautiful setup, and I jammed as much in as I could, and it was just great. It was a great trip for me. I really enjoyed it. Like I
Great.
did. I
were you were you surprised by, because I know we discussed it, but were you surprised by really how close everything in that town is, and how really kind of
Yeah,
small it is and
it really
insulated
is.
it really
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, I mean, I live in rural Ontario up in Canada, and I'm familiar with both the big cities and the small towns, and certainly the small towns are all around me, and I kind of knew what to expect in that regard, and yeah, it was like that. But what surprised me is that there's just not a lot of people out. Like, it's a small town. There's people walking and, walking their dogs, pushing their children, out for walks and whatever, but, it's really I don't wanna say it's not a ghost town, but it's like it's a quiet little town. I mean, that's what I experienced when I was there, and it was just,
It's a quiet,
regular. I'm
sleepy
sure it's
little town,
yeah, it's just regular, Indiana rural
small
town, and
town.
it was
Yeah,
very beautiful. Yeah,
right. Well, I mean,
I
they also
was
probably heard there was
mm.
a Canadian in town, and so they probably locked their
Yeah,
doors and stayed inside.
true, true, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I in no way, I didn't feel unsafe in any way. It was just everybody was just excellent everywhere I went, really. Like, it was a great experience. That's what I had there. It was sad, you know?
I was really excited to get to be a part of it as well. That because I went down in May, for the
Yeah.
first time for the hearings that did not happen.
Mhm.
But it kind of ended up giving me the opportunity to spend 9 days in
Yeah.
Carroll County, with no one else around, and this was a
Yeah.
very different trip, of course, because it
Yeah.
was jam packed
Jam full, yeah.
um, with court and the just the physical and the emotional toll that took on us. I think
Oh,
you could
definitely.
tell the difference between morning one and evening
Mhm.
three.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and we can
Yeah.
talk about we can talk more when we do the live stream.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
mean, yeah.
and
It
people
was
are probably like, get to the information.
Yeah. Never mind about them. They can go chit chat somewhere else. We want the
Right.
details.
I do have an interesting story to tell everyone at some point
You have a
about
few.
about the doghouse and the Long
Oh,
Island speed limit,
no,
but we
no,
can get to that another
no.
time.
Yes, you certainly can somewhere else.
So you were kind of a godsend to me, because you got to court. You were very
Mm.
adamant that you were going to get to court at like
Oh,
5:30,
yeah, but no, 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 no. Quarter to 5. So I
quarter
was
to
with
five.
the warden. I was with the warden, Sarah.
Right.
Our beloved Sarah, and there is no there she will just leave you. Like, she is like,
No.
"We're gonna be there." First it was, I think it's always been 5. It just kept getting earlier and earlier every hearing that I went down for. It was 5:30, then it was 5, and then it was quarter to 5, and she's running out the door at 4:30 once she heard that Frank Meister and Rescue All the Dogs were over there. And of course, we get over there and they're set up with their lawn chairs
Right.
at the door. So
And
but they had their camping chairs.
and the hearing didn't start until it was scheduled to start at
Mm,
10 a.m. So not only
yeah.
were you there at 5 a.m., but you were there 5 hours before it was
Oh,
actually
I
scheduled.
know. I
Um,
know. Yeah.
I thought I was doing good when I rolled up around 5:40.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you were though.
and
That was
and I was excited.
exciting.
I was
Yeah.
excited to meet you and to meet like Frank and Rescue,
Yeah.
and Murder Sheet was in the
Yes,
line
Kevin and
already, and
Anya.
um,
Yeah.
and then then I was pleasantly surprised that Susan Hendricks was right
Oh,
there,
yeah.
who I've kind of
Yeah.
fangirled over for a
She's
long time now.
classy as she is on screen. She is just what a woman she is, I'll tell you.
And
Wasn't
speaking of,
disappointed by her.
I walked up with another incredible woman, Hannah Shakespeare,
Mm.
who
Mhm.
does the Lifetime documentary,
Yep.
and has followed the case really closely as well.
Yes.
And I mean, I mean, look at her IMDb. She speaks for itself. Speaks for
Yeah.
itself. Um, but it was surreal being at the courthouse and like kind of meeting everyone and going through that like experience of
Mm.
waiting in line.
Yeah. Susan said every day, and even when she was leaving, she was just like, even if we did have press passes, I enjoyed being out in the line with everybody. You know, the sense of community that we had. We're there to see justice through for Libby and Abby and support their families. And it was just, and you know, law enforcement too, and everybody that's worked so hard and just be there. And she said she, you know, I mean, she said she wouldn't use her. She liked being in there with all the people and talking and
Right.
meeting people. And yeah, she was a real sweetheart. She is a real sweetheart.
Absolutely. And I just, you know, I found it kind of unexpected, I guess, you know, and really overwhelmingly emotional when I really took into account
Yeah.
how much support the girls
Mm.
and the families
Oh yeah.
had in that
Hmm.
courtroom all three
Yeah.
days.
Hmm.
And it was an unexpected um, thing that, you know, I hope carries over to trial,
Yeah.
because I know that the families appreciate it and feel the support and love that they had
I,
in that room, because there were some
I
tough moments.
oh yeah, there sure were. Yeah.
So
No,
okay, so
it's um. Mhm.
the courthouse opens at 8 a.m. Um, you know, clearly there were several court deputies that do not
Yes.
normally reside or live in Carroll County. They
Right.
were brought in from other places, um, and they picked some nice looking ones that were all very nice and very kind and funny
Uh huh.
and professional.
I think Hannah
But
had made a
you know,
comment to you about she had an assessment and she was like, "Where did all these guys come from?"
this was
But
this was
you know
this was
what?
if they were from Delphi, this was the new class.
They were so professional though.
They
All
were.
3 days. They were, I mean, they did their job, they were in the zone, and they were, you know, they were there for the long haul, and they were all excellent, honestly. Like I mean,
I,
they were ready, they had the plan, you know, they executed everything went well, and they kept the smiles on, and there were long days.
they were very long days, and and you know, and they were, you know, a lot of it they were really just standing around, waiting for
Yeah.
the misfits that were there to go in and out.
Yeah.
But I actually thought that everyone was incredibly respectful and well behaved,
Yes.
both
Yeah.
staff wise and
Mhm.
people that were there to watch the hearings.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody
I mean, I know
was. Yep.
we've seen
Mhm.
some behavior in the past, I guess, that, hasn't necessarily shined the best light on this community. So I was very, it made me really happy to see even
Yeah.
people that, have different views on things, be respectful towards each other and, be able to be peaceful. So I did enjoy that. But so the courthouse opened at 8, and then you ran to your seat and got seats, and you saved me one,
Yes, the warden
thankfully.
had a mission.
I don't know
I
how
love
Sarah
you,
moved that.
Sarah. Sarah had a fully execute. How do you say it? Executable plan? She had the plan. She had, you know, shown me. She drew diagrams. Like I knew what I was doing. I'd never been there before. No, she's the best. She's got the details. Like she knows.
I mean, when she knocked that little kid down, I thought it was a little, over the top. No, I'm kidding. She did not do that. Um, but so
Yeah. So
so what were your thoughts of the courthouse? Like, as far as, like, I mean, it's a beautiful building,
yeah, yeah.
and then the
Oh,
courtroom was on the
I've.
third floor.
Mhm. Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, it was a scaled down version of the Fort Wayne courthouse, which is it's just beautiful. I mean, you know, I've been to two amazing courthouses, really. I mean, you know, I don't go to the courthouses here, but I know we don't have the old classic structures you know I've attended down there. So yeah, no, it was great. Um, they had the
In,
first. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Indiana can build a courthouse. That's absolutely for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and, Of course, I
It wasn't.
would have liked it to have been better air conditioned, but
Yeah, I was gonna
I get it.
say
It's an old building. We're on the third floor.
only thing she got wrong. She had said she had warned that it was going to be quite cool, so that's what we were anticipating. But we quickly realized it wasn't going to be like that. It wasn't that bad, but it was a little warm, and the seats got a little hard after a couple days. But some people brought pillows and whatever, and it was fine. The sound was quite good. I know they battled that at the June 15th, 2023 hearing. This They had major sound issues, but they
Right.
had gotten some upgrades, and that was good. And you pointed out right away, of course, you were on it like a hawk. You saw the cameras that were covered up with garbage bags.
Well, I mean, it was hard to miss the two black trash bags that were like up on each side of the judge.
They were flanking, yeah,
Yeah,
flanking
and then there
Judge
was one
Gull.
or two in the back as well. So so for anyone that is curious, though, I mean that courtroom is equipped and ready to film a trial
Yeah,
if given permission.
yeah.
So okay, so we got in at 8. What time was it that we found out that Gull was running behind?
10 on
She
the
was coming
10 on the nose.
10 because she was coming from Fort Wayne, and she got stuck in traffic, I guess.
Hmm.
So even though we'd already been there for almost 5 hours, we ended up court didn't actually end up starting until 11:12,
Yep.
I believe, is when Gull walked in the courtroom.
Yep.
I know
Just
the
after
lawyers that
11.
came in earlier, they were kind of going in and
Hmm.
out.
Yep.
I can't remember what time the families came in, but I do remember, having them watching them all come in,
Yeah.
and then they brought Alan from the rear of the courtroom,
Yes.
on the defense side at 11:03 a.m. And what were you'd seen Alan before, correct?
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
were your
Twice.
thoughts? What were your thoughts now compared to the previous time?
He looked different yet again. I mean, the last May 7th in Fort Wayne, he was full of hair, which was different from when I seen him in March 18th. So, yeah, he looked like he lost a little bit of weight. He was, pretty clean shaven with a little bit of stubble. And when he came in, I had notes here that he was crossing his hands, and I don't know if he was just shaking them out from the cuffs or what, but it almost seemed like he was doing some sort of hand signal. But
Oh,
he
you mean
did,
when they took them off, when they took
yeah,
the pink handcuffs off of him?
yes,
Yeah, he did do kind of a gesture with
yeah,
his wrist or his hand, and I kind of thought the same thing. I wasn't sure if he was
hmm.
just relaxing his wrist, or if he or if it was some kind of gesture towards the guard, because
Yeah,
they seemed relaxed towards each other. They didn't, he didn't
yeah.
seem hostile towards them.
No,
They
gosh,
did not
no,
seem
no, he
hostile
wasn't.
towards them at all.
No, no, and
Um,
he was
he did,
he did the staring up at the ceiling thing again, like for a little bit.
right,
Um, but he really was a lot different in Delphi than he had been in Fort Wayne. He was very engaged, like over the course of the 3 days, and we'll get into all that. But I mean, he was just totally different.
right.
Kind of overall, really. And Kathy still had her wedding ring on, I had noted, and she was looking kind of forlorn, which is the way she had looked at the two Fort Wayne hearings to me. And Janice was just watching his mother.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
for context, so like the courtroom is divided into two sides, and there's a middle aisle. The first row is blocked off for security. So the first row that was open, the family took the first 4 rows of
Three.
the
Yeah, three.
was it 3 rows behind the
Yep.
prosecutor's table, and then on the defense side, they only had 6 seats reserved. Both for the law staff of Baldwin or Rosie, and then Kathy and Janice, and then there was a one remaining seat that kind of like alternated between a couple people throughout the week. And we were in that row in
Hmm.
the first available row on the defense side. So Sarah was on the aisle, and then you were sitting next to her, and then I was sitting next to you. And that first day, Matt Hoffman, the
House investigator.
the investigator for the defense, he was sitting to my right, and then Kathy and Janice were 2 seats further down. For me, having never seen Richard Allen in person, I've heard a lot of people say that his small stature really is striking in person by how non-threatening he looks, and how I don't know, like how much of a non-presence he really has. And I know there's a part of me is influenced, of course, by what I know he's accused of, and what I know about him. But there were definitely elements to his behavior and like just his eyes, especially, are not something that I would forget or not notice, even if I just walked into CVS and he was working, I would notice those eyes.
Yeah. They were bulgy, kind of, eh? Did you find?
I've heard a lot of people say that, yeah. So, I mean, I guess, the color of them is really striking as well. Like, because we've seen so many pictures of him where there's almost no color to his eyes, whereas his eyes were incredibly light blue. I felt like all 3 days of the hearings 2 weeks ago. And I actually thought he looked younger in person than, like, when I would look at him, I could easily see how some people would think he looks older, and some people think he looks younger.
Yeah. Yeah. He like I said, his appearance has been different all 3 times the way I've seen him. I mean, the first and third were more similar. When he had a lot of hair and beard and everything, I mean, he just looked like a totally different person, really.
Right. Well, they probably stopped letting him go to the barber after he was confessed. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to get, I know everyone's probably bored with us, like giving our descriptions already, but, so
it was a big deal for you.
I mean,
like
it was. I mean, well, even just to see, the attorneys and to see Judge Gull in person, you have kind of these, of course you have an opinion kind of based on what you've seen from their behavior and them on, things in the past. So to see them in person is always interesting.
Yeah.
So, we sat there a long time. Court started at 11:12. I think I said Gull entered the courtroom.
Well, don't forget, we had a panic moment because they allowed Judge Gull's decorum allowed us to bring our phones in. We just had to have them off in the courtroom, which is what everybody did. We all had our phones, which was great because we could just, leave at the quick breaks and then go and do our thing outside or whatever, or on the first floor. But then the guard come in at 10 and announced she was late, and he also said there was an error in the decorum and that there were no cell phones allowed. And we all just went, what, because only a couple of us had vehicles. A lot of people had walked or got dropped off.
Yeah, Hannah and I had walked from our Airbnb.
Yeah, so we had to, we gathered up. Sarah and I had our bags, and we just gathered everybody just threw their phones in. And, people we didn't even know, and just because there was no other option. And then so we ran them down and got them locked away. So
and Sarah let everyone know that she was going to copy the data off of all of our phones.
yeah, that was mentioned.
Which I actually kind of thought it was funny that, I'm like, here people have talked about like this, Carroll County in corruption and all these things. And I'm like, and here we're all just handing over our phones, and can you imagine if they did a download of yours or my phone? half of those poor people would be like, why does he know my social security number? I'm kidding.
Oh, look at these 20,000 screenshots.
Oh, here,
we found 26
more. We found 26 more terabytes.
Yeah. Oh my god. So we got into the safekeeping order. And the thing is, I forgot that Liggett had even gone on
Right. Well, see,
till I read my notes.
one thing I thought was nice was, that before we actually even started anything, that, Gull gave us a little breakdown
Mm, yeah,
of the schedule and kind of what to expect, which I personally found, like I like to know what's going to happen. So,
definitely.
she let us know right away that, the goal was that, day one, they were going to do the safekeeping motion. They were going to do the motion to compel and sanction, and that they were going to address the motion to dismiss. And then day two, they had reserved for the two motions to suppress. Um, and then day three was going to be the motion in limine, and then I think something about admissibility as well.
Yeah,
And so it was nice to kind of have that in your head, like as we were going along, as far as like what was still to come, where we were. But
right.
but yeah, so I mean, I know she started, so we started with the safekeeping. And Tony Liggett, like you just said, the sheriff of Carroll County, is the first witness, and
Hmm.
I have it on my notes that he sat down on the stand at 11:16 a.m. that morning.
Hmm.
Um, and Brad Rosie is the one that was questioning him. So, what do you have from your notes, or what were your thoughts, like kind of like with Liggett?
Yeah. So I have that. They went through. They were asking about. Went through whether he was in solitary. And they hashed out some details about the spring of 2023. And Nick actually asked him, I have Nick, did you go to visit his jail cell? And Liggett had responded, no. And then um, Rosie asked Liggett, are you aware we've tried to vacate the safekeeping order and what is your plan? And Liggett responded with Cass County. Now Rosie indicated that Delphi is in charge of Carroll County is in charge of the custody of Alan during proceedings, and Liggett agreed with that. Um, they got into some stuff about Sheriff Schroeder. Now, Schroeder testified at the June 15th hearing in 2023 because,
Right,
a lot of this was repetitive for a
right.
couple of these witnesses, and they did discuss.
That's Andrew Schroeder for anyone that likes full names.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, so Cass County was going to need um, Carroll County to have one. No, I have one ISP vehicle is requested, and Liggett stated that they haven't been able to accommodate that yet, but that they think that they can do it.
And
Um,
one additional officer.
right. Yeah. Right. The vehicle and the officer. Yeah. So they were kind of coordinating what happens when Cass has him, but Alan needs to be transported. And again, this is nothing new. This was all gone over in 2023 at that June hearing.
Right.
So,
But
and
he,
they asked,
it is nice. I mean, it is of note that he was being housed in Cass County for the days that we were there for the hearings. So
right,
that became kind of a point of argument as well, as far as like if they can accommodate him for these 3 days, why can't they accommodate him until and through trial? Which ultimately we now know that they were successful in. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah, no, that's okay. There were a lot of questions from Rosie asking if Alan had done anything to harm others, and Liggett responded that he was unaware of that. And Rosie questioned, are there logistical issues? And Liggett said yes. Rosie wanted to know if the facilities are adequate at Cass County, and Liggett responded that the Sheriff Schroeder says yes, that there are a couple hundred beds. It's a state of the art facility. He had been a longtime sheriff there, and
Mhm.
there is an isolation cell. Um, so Liggett said there is one problem. Under normal circumstances, we house at Cass if there's a problem or a medical issue, Cass picks up the phone and says, "Come and get him."
Right.
And the fear is that if we vacate the safekeeping order, that there's going to be, again, these transport issues. So Rosie pointed out that in the last paragraph of the safekeeping order, that the DOC is the backup, not Delphi. And Liggett had said it would take some time to get these logistics coordinated. Nick made a point to say that there's no shower, there's padded cells at Cass County. And Nick asked Liggett, "Is the care adequate now, like at Wabash?" And the answers to
Right.
all of these things was all, affirmative. Is the care adequate now? Is the medical good now? Mental health, does he have it? Transporting to
Right.
the hearing, all of this stuff ISP has been taken care of. And Liggett then responded that he didn't care where Richard Allen is housed at.
Right.
So that was kind of a, they were going through that because of course it come up later on that they do not have mental health care at Cass County every
Full time.
day. They only
Yeah.
have it one day a week, and
Right.
medical care only happens 12 hours a day there. So that, they were
Correct.
concerned about that being an issue for him.
Which, yeah, and my notes, I mean, they echo, of course, several of the things you said. I do have it that Brad Rosie is the one that asked him, that asked Liggett, have you ever visited Westville
Mm,
or Wabash, to see Richard Allen's cell and conditions, to which both of those, Liggett replied no.
right.
Um, I have that, Andrew, they discussed Sheriff Schroeder, and the one trooper and vehicle, if Cass County were to keep him until trial. That really the only concern Liggett had was logistical stuff. That, and that's when he brought up that, if Cass County has a problem, usually they'll call Delphi and say, "Come pick your kid up from the sleepover." They're throwing up, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
and that Carroll County can't, and that, then this was something I think Nick and Liggett both had kind of pointed out, is that, if they vacate the safekeeping order, um, it immediately puts, um, Richard Allen into the care of Carroll County, and Carroll County has said they can't keep him safe, and that, and that they can't accommodate. And
Hmm.
so, if there was to be an issue that would arise, transfer to Cass County, or, and that's when Rosie kind of suggested, rather than vacate, like
Yeah.
possibly modifying the
Yep.
safekeeping order. Um,
Hmm.
to which, like you said, Nick did bring up a couple of things where he said, if it's vacating, he goes to Carroll County immediately. Liggett really said that he doesn't have any issue where he's held. The only thing he thinks is that's important is that the safekeeping order stays in place. But that, he doesn't mind him, being placed in a different facility. Um,
The
um,
safekeeping, they kept calling Allen a safekeeper during
yeah,
Dr. Walla's 4-hour testimony on day 3. So it
right.
really, really, really made a difference in the way things were handled with him.
Well, yeah, and it kind of became, it definitely kind of, highlighted a stark contrast in the way some people view, the treatment, because I
Yeah.
think that, there were certain things that,
Mhm.
probably, that because he was on a safekeeping order, um and I don't really think anyone, I don't think anyone has really said he should just be out in Gen Pop. I've not heard anyone
No,
say that.
that was
but
mentioned. That was
but
mentioned in even Rosie said that, I believe I had, or was,
but being under the safekeeping order, it definitely did, present some challenges, that, I
mhm,
think probably made people question whether his rights were being, violated. Like, especially with like the solitary 30 days thing, which then we'll get into all that later when we talk about, is that during Wallace's testimony.
mhm.
um, but I mean, I do have that,
Well,
Liggett did say the cell size, the cell size is the same in Carroll County as it is as he had in Wabash, and that he'd still be cut off from other inmates in Cass. And then I have May 2024 deposition question mark in my notes.
Yeah.
And that's when Nick objected and said that it doesn't relate to safekeeping.
Yeah, the May 2024 depo was, Rosie said, you acknowledge there are very specific rules and standards that you adopted to DOC standards. 30 days is the max limit for solitary.
Right.
They have the max, and then an administrative hearing is required.
That's right.
And Nick asked, objection, how does it, or sorry, he stated, objection, how does this relate to safekeeping? And Rosie said, it's known in the industry that solitary could be detrimental. It's been what, 1.5 years now? And Liggett said, I highly doubt Alan is in Gen Pop.
Right.
And then it was asked if Cass County he would be in solitary, and Liggett said yes, he will be by himself. And Rosie says, have you seen Cass County solitary? Liggett says no. Well, Rosie says, well, there's several solitary cells with access to a day room in Cass County.
Right.
So, and then Gull said, perhaps we should admit it before we start to argue it, which Rosie responded that he was trying to summarize. And then he got into the code IC 35-33-11-1, where the inmate is in danger of serious injury or death. There's a process. There's no danger. There's nothing on record for Alan. From a purely legal standpoint, there's a practical side to this. Of course, you can't just put him in general population. And Liggett has testified he doesn't care where he is. We request that you modify or vacate the safekeeping. Modifying makes more sense, but vacate if necessary. So I do think that they were probably quite surprised that it got vacated.
Right.
Because it seemed to me like they were looking for him to modify it.
Yeah, no, I felt that way too, and honestly, I mean, I don't think anyone in that court was surprised when we. Well, I mean, I was surprised when she announced the
already,
because
yeah.
Well, I mean, really, just because one, it came right after some very intense, heavy testimony on the very end of a 12-hour day on the third day.
Yeah.
But honestly, it almost kind of was like an afterthought. Like some people had already even gotten up and left. And she kind of was like, oh, by the way, you might notice the sheriffs that are here. But I did have a note in here where because Rosie can talk for sure. But he was going on a little it sounded like he was doing like a commercial for the Cass County jail about how new it was and how nice and everything. And I put in my notes, according to Rosie, the new Cass County jail rivals the Ritz.
Did you write that down?
Yeah,
so funny.
That was not said in court. It was I was joking, but
there were a few interesting side notes.
And then right after, it was right around then too. It was probably one of the only snarky things that I heard between the judge and the attorneys was Rosie was speaking, and I don't think Gull could hear him. And Gull said, "Don't walk away and talk at the same time."
Oh, I didn't hear that.
And he turned around, and that was kind of the end of it. And those exchanges were very minimal over the 3 days.
Oh, they were.
But
yeah.
That was but I noticed that one. And that's when they introduced Exhibit A, which was the affidavit from Sheriff Schroeder. That's when Rosie went into the law that dictates safekeeping, IC 35-33-11-1. Nothing meets the standard. Rosie says the logic dictates he won't be in Gen Pop. And kind of seemed like everyone agreed Cass County would be a good alternative.
What Nick wanted to know on the cross, I guess, is we had this hearing on June 15th, 2023 for the safekeeping. We went
Right.
through all of these things, the 12 hours a day medical only, then mental health only available 1 day a week. If he goes to Carroll County Jail, he's in Gen Pop. The state believes that it's not appropriate to vacate the safekeeping order. Now,
Right.
Judge Gall wanted to know, and this isn't at this point, it was a little bit later, but she said, my question is, does the statute that they're going to go on to argue about, does it give the court
Exactly.
the ability to modify?
Yeah, she
And
wasn't, and I'd heard, I'd heard legal professionals actually discussing that,
oh,
and kind of not knowing the answer,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so
well,
I thought that was a very astute
mm,
thing to talk about,
yeah,
and Rosie is actually the one that was able to bring up the statute um,
yeah,
where it made it clear that it was within the judge's discretion, I think. Um,
yeah. He read
and then
from the case law.
there was a little bit of back and forth as far as because is the defendant's, is it their 6th or 16th amendment right, like the to
Six
um basically
counsel.
to where you have like easy access to your counsel.
Correct. Yeah,
um
the Sixth Amendment right to counsel, the right is being
yes.
infringed upon.
And so, once again, Rosie brought up, he was moved. He's now 200 miles away from my office. He's 2 hours away from
Hmm.
Baldwin and O'Shea, who's a female attorney on the defense. Um,
Yeah, because
and
Nick's argument against this was that you don't have a new argument from the June 2023 hearing. Like, what is your new
no,
argument? And there was an email reference that Rosie had sent, and I quote, "I trust the
oh yeah,
guards at Cass County." And he argued
yeah,
that there was a substantial change because Alan was 200 miles from Rosie, and then a little bit later on, he referenced how far away that Kathy and Janice were, 250 miles away from their family now. So because when they moved him to Wabash, he was even further away.
correct. But
Yeah,
I mean, by the sounds of it, they seem to be in a less harsh environment, at least complaint wise, from what I've heard about the two facilities. Um,
well, he was in a different
I
frame of
will.
mind as well,
Well, yeah, I mean,
right?
and I will say that I don't, like I said, I don't think anyone in that courtroom was surprised that
No,
that they finally did modify the safekeeping order. But
no.
I mean, I'll be honest, like I think that like the just this motion alone, and the hearing that they had on it, I'm sure that that played a part in her decision to modify it. But when you look at the totality of the 3 days of testimony, and you look at the testimony from Walla, and then you look at the testimony from the warden, and you hear about the companions, I'm sure a lot of those things went into her decision making, as far as when she came to the conclusion that we're not talking about a year and a half now that we have to
Right.
keep the safekeeping order in
Yeah.
place, in
True.
a new environment. We're less than 3 months from trial, so
Another thing that a lot of people
I didn't
don't
see
seem
anyone.
to
I didn't see
know.
anyone upset. I don't
No,
think anyone was like, "Damn it, they're moving him."
no, no. I think nobody, as long as he's kept safe until you can get him to trial to face these
Exactly.
charges, and for him not to injure himself. Like, he had medical and mental health needs, and I mean, where he was at previously is not where he's at now. So,
No. Or I mean, yeah. I
like
mean, when he entered Westville, he was brought in on he was brought in on suicide watch,
I
basically,
think
just because of his prior history. And we'll talk about that when we get into
right.
day two. But
Yeah. Yeah, he had suicidal ideation going back an awful long way in his history, back to the young
absolutely,
years. Yeah.
yeah,
So and actually, yeah, we'll get into that because that's another day. But But I mean, he wasn't in solitary. He was in an administrative capacity there for up until April, from December till April at Westville. So,
Right.
but anyway, we'll touch on that when we have those notes in front of us. But this was basically the end of the safekeeping. Rosie quoted the case law 353311 -1 in the middle of that, whatever that, I never looked it up, but, and then Judge Gull said that she'd take the motion to vacate the safekeeping order under advice and
Right.
review the affidavit.
Yeah, and that was I mean, and so that entire hearing, let's see, court started at, like I said, she came in at 11:12, and that and she ended that hearing for the safekeeping order or safekeeping motion at 11:40,
Yeah.
because at 11:42 they started the motions for sanctions or compel. To which we'll break down, and of course, in another little video.
Okay.
But I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to keep rolling with the sanctions, but yeah, we can do it separate, no problem. I know that was our plan.
I figured this way, if we play this, if we do end up, like playing this on live, it'll give us an opportunity to like stop, and then we can really take your questions and comments in between each one of them, and really try to interact with everyone. I just thought this would be more comfortable, since like you're not used to doing lives, and it's been a long time since I've done one on my own.
Sure.
But I really like I really like hearing what your thoughts were, and even though ours were very similar on this, I know a couple of the motions where we did come away with different things. So I think it'll be interesting to keep going and see what our thoughts were. We've only got 17 more motions to go.
17 more hours.
No, but 17 hours. That was just day 3.
Yeah.
Day one was the shortest of all the
short
days
day. Yeah.
Even though we got there 5 a.m, and but court that day ended at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the only day we were out before dinner time. So
yeah.
We'll take a break now, and then we will see you guys for the motion for sanctions, unless you have any last thoughts on the safekeeping.
No, I'm good. I will take a break and come back.
I have one quick question. So what did you think of Liggett? Because I forgot that he even testified, to be honest.
Yeah, I did too.
By the end of the 3 days, I was like, Liggett testified?
I swear to God, I did not even remember that he testified until today when I reviewed my notes for going over this with you. I'm not joking, sadly. No offense to Liggett. I mean, it was just, I mean, we'd already gone through all of this last year, right? So it was a very kind of ho-hum way to start the day, right?
And I wasn't at the June 15th hearing, so they had to redo everything. which we find out later, they actually do go through and redo everything from the June 15th hearing.
Well, Gallipo was brutal because that was just that was so long.
I remember saying that to you while we were in court. I said, well, I wasn't here that day, so they probably just wanted to fill me in.
Yeah. Well, we get into some more interesting new things in the next portion.
Right. Okay, well then let's end this, and I really appreciate you doing this, and we'll see everyone in like 2 seconds.
Thanks, Aspen.